वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा.
The people, if you people are not interested in looking at his example charts or ignoring the astronomical portions in this book, then it is a good collection of basic principles for judging charts.
A very good collection of principles given in different classics, bhava-wise and house-wise.
Yeah.
So I really call it a very good book. But if you quote examples from me, from this, then I will have strong difference with you. Because the Navansha is different in Lahiri. So as Chirmule said very correctly, principles collected beautifully in one place you get in this. Ignore the examples.
Especially for English speaking people, it can be it's not very costly, and you just have to probably ignore all the charts in the text. So you
and
can
charts are nearly 500 in 2 volumes.
Are there?
500.
Okay, but that's a big task. Any case, it's a good collection of basic principles. We had brought this because I think Dr. Charak's book was not there at that time, right? Or what?
I have no idea.
Dr. Charak has also written an introductory book on astrology.
No, that they know, they have bought.
They have bought already. Okay, are there any questions? Yes. That is a good book. That's a good book. But again, couple of things. The charts which he gives as examples in them are based on his Ayanansh, and it is, of course, they are still relevant because probably the yogas are not going to get affected as much because of the Ayanansh. But in certain cases, even the ascendant might get affected. So best is to look at those 300 important combinations as just combinations and forget the charts around. And secondly, there is a little problem in the beginning of the book when he describes the benefics and malefics as per the lordships of the planet. And some of the yogas don't obey that rule. Some of the yogas supersede all that. Beneficence and maleficence based on lordships. So there is a little problem that I had with that book. But then it is, such books are always, the discretion of the reader is very important in this. So, yes?
In that book you're talking about, if you look at the edition previous to the last one, where you're talking about the exchange of that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yeah.
If you look at Rama's book, the previous edition, the one that's out, he's changed some of the order of mythics and elliptics based on the law. He's changed some of those.
Yeah, what I just now explained was, I have a little problem with treating the planet's temporal behavior at all in the formation of the yoga, because some of those yogas supersede this temporal dispositions. I am not exactly 100% competent to deliver a judgment on this as to which yogas you should ignore the lordships. But to have define these things in the beginning of the book creates an impression that this is valid for the whole of the book, which it is according to him. But then I get into a problem with the book. But as a collection of yogas, it is great. Yes?
I like to have your opinion about the book of Sutras.
Pardon?
Astro Sutras by J.N. Bhasin.
That's correct.
Right.
What do you think of it? It's okay.
It's okay. Some of his, J.N. Bhasin's significations, Mr. Rao knows him, I think. I never got, he died, he's no longer alive. Mr. J.N. Bhasin had a difference in interpreting significations of certain houses.
You are the greatest gentleman astrologer I have met ever in my life. the greatest gentleman astrologer, D.N. Bhasin. He predicted his own death. Last when he met me, he said, Mr. Rao, I have only 6 months more left. And he was a highly helpful man as an astrologer. My differences with him were the same as have been my differences with Dr. Raman. You have to go into Varga charts. He never went even into Navansha.
Yeah, and his Ayanansh was also different.
And in his Ainansha, he tried to adjust something. Even in Lahiri, he made some adjustment.
No, what he did was, he calculated the dashas based on one Ayanansh and calculated the planets' degrees based on another Ayanansh.
Correct.
I mean, it was some sort of compromise. I don't know for what prompted him to do that, but then you feel a little shaky, when you go ahead. So, in any case, some of his observations do make sense. But if you read all of Mr. J.N. Bhasin's books, I think you could make one book out of it. It's a repetition in all of the books. So, okay, any more questions? I think I'm holding your class. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was very much.
Now what I'll do is, I'll not talk about a single technical point of the 7, 8 or 9 stages of Vinnastaka, Sarvashtaka, Prastharaka, because it is very, very frustrating for a man like me to answer a question you put without doing it manually yourself, because you really do not know what question you are putting. So therefore, I will not go into it. I will go into the uses of the Sarvashtaka for you. So first I start with this example, because this is an example of a person, a very intimate friend of mine, whom I guided, whom I have been guiding from 1978 right up to 1995 personally. The simple thing you have to see here is 3 or 4 are the most significant points to be noticed for your understanding. 25 and 35, the 10th and the 11th houses. I showed you in the case of Rajiv Gandhi, so also here you see the quantum jump. He started his career. I said, Julia, if you are coming, please get me some water also. He started his career in a small, ordinary post in his life. Since I know him personally, will give some margin for my weakness. You will rarely come across a greater gentleman and a finer friend than this man. And wherever he worked, people liked him. And in course of time, he was picked up for good jobs. And he had a big rise. He came to me at a time when Saturn was transiting here. When Saturn was transiting here, you try to see it is 8 from the moon. Covering the 64th Navansha from the moon. And as usual, astrologers who gave prediction without looking into the Sarvashtaka were right in their own way. They said it is a bad period for you. I always quote this example for a very good reason. When you are giving predictions without looking into Sarvashtaka, you can commit the same mistake. I also would have committed the same mistake. If you had come to me without Sarvashtaka, I said, be careful. right? And I would not be wrong technically. You would say Mr. Rao is right. But fortunately I had the Sarvashtaka, I looked into it, I said no. The best promotion of your life you are going to get here. And he did get the best promotion. Became the chairman of a very big textile company known as British India Corporation, right from Englishman's time. So for your understanding, now I'll give you 4 points. Is for me, I hope. Thank you. I'll give you 4 points. Whether you want to note it down, you may note down. Whether you want to keep it mentally in your mind, you can keep it. A. Shall I write down? The art of balancing in astrology. Both are good. That example of Mr. D.N. Dikshit is there before you. The Dasha was good, the Antar-dasa was good, and Saturn's transit. Now you are asking me, you wanted to know about double transit. I do double transit mainly on Ashtakavarga. Saturn is favorable in transit, Jupiter is favorable in transit, and very favorable in Ashtakavarga, and Dasha is good. The best that is to happen in your life is going to happen now. Remember, I started by showing that question of Maitreya to Parashar. You have given so many things that I got confused, and a man of Kali Yuga cannot retain all that in the mind. For God's sake, give me some short method. So he gives the snapshot method. How easy it becomes for you. The snapshot method. You have the Sarvashtaka, you have the Dasha, you have the Antar-dasa. And why do I insist only on the transit mainly of Saturn and Jupiter? Because they are slow moving planets. Other planets are moving so fast, they are skipping from one house to another. Here they stay long enough in one place. To give a major prediction without seeing the strength of Saturn and Jupiter in transit is to land in disaster. Now Mr. Chirmule talked about so many good books here. I will recommend every one of these books, including Dr. Raman's How to Judge a Horoscope, as far as the compilation of principles are concerned. I will never quote a single horoscope from his writings, because the Ainansha is wrong. But he is a great scholar, the principles are all right. But the other classics he has quoted. What happens is, what we have available in Hindi with us, 1/10 of that only is available to you in English to you. Some of the translations may have been done wrongly also, I do not know. I don't read these English translations myself in India. Because when I have better commentaries available in Hindi, why should I read English? So these people, publishers, come and do present their books to me in India. So I told Chirmule, at least for the sake of people in USA, because I can't ask you to read it in Hindi. He talked about Jatak Tattva. Shall I tell you? Mahadeva's Jatak Tattva has been commented upon, elaborated by his own son. It is in Hindi, originally in Marathi I think, then in Hindi. I cannot think of a greater recent classic on astrology than that. But that is not available in English. If I talk about it, now you will begin to feel thirsty. And you will say, I will come and disturb you at 12 o'clock in the midnight. I can do nothing. But I tell you, I have not read a greater book than that in recent years.
Can you put some people in your school or your program?
Oh no, see, everyone is a working man. All of us are non-professional people. We are academic group. An academic group has its own difficulties also. See, no one is earning anything out of astrology. None of us. Right? People come to us, we give free consultations. We are busy presenting these researches. You can imagine when these people send the brochure to me, they said you will have to take up Ashtakavarga. I have not done Ashtakavarga after 78. But I make use of Ashtakavarga always. But manually I have not done it after 78. And I don't believe in doing Ashtakavarga or teaching Ashtakavarga unless you sit down to do manually with me. Make no mistake about it. Let it be dry absolutely. You eat more sweets and come to my class and keep orange juice. I am not going to give you juice in teaching Ashtakavarga. So therefore in the morning when you put some questions to me, I felt the questions, the answers you would never understand. Naturally, you sit down with me 2 hours. Do manually with me. And don't complain.
Well, let's do it then.
Anyway, when I do Gemini, you will have to do manually with me. I am warning you right now. You come prepared with horoscopes, forms, bring enough blank papers. Gemini, in the beginning, I will make it as dry as possibly I can make it. I will use all my capacity to make it dry for you and test you. If you pass the test of dryness, I will show you dazzling results from Gemini. That I promise. But if you complain, well, I'm not prepared to do this thing manually, then you will miss the finer points later. Be careful. Same thing here. So anyway, 4 good, 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 weak, weak, good, weak, weak. Now which is the worst? Right? So it is a simple snapshot method. I have talked about it in I don't know which book or which article. There is a very good man, he came to me in Delhi, 1980. He showed the horoscope. He thought he would be nominated for one of the topmost legal positions of India. Now take me seriously, very seriously. The man comes and he wants such an important piece of advice. He has to reach the Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, and get the topmost legal position. And do you want me to give a prediction to a man like this without looking into Ashtakavarga? He came as usual with that. I said, no. Get me your Ashtakavarga. We had a genius of an astrologer on the mathematical side, Mr. Jayaram Iyer in Delhi. If he rectified his horoscope like late D.V. Subbarao, there is no question of my doubting it. So I said, you go to Mr. Jayaram Iyer. He rectified the whole horoscope, brought the Sarvashtaka to me. I said, you don't have strong political support. He said, Mr. Rao, that is my strongest point. I said, I am telling you that is your weakest point. In a democracy, strong political support is given by Saturn. Note it down. In a monarchy or aristocracy, strong support is given by the sun. S-U-N. To find out the periods favorable for enhancement in dignity, watch the transit of Jupiter in Sarvashtaka. To find out the period favorable for enhancement of power, when you have 200, 300, 500, 10,000, 15,000 people working under you, watch Saturn. Saturn is control over masses. Jupiter is enhancement of dignity. Jupiter is enhancement of dignity and Saturn is gathering of power. Why the double transit of Saturn and Jupiter? Is it clear to you now, Ronnie? You wanted me to know? And when it is destructive, when Jupiter has become very weak and is not able to provide anything and is placed in a bad house and it is a bad Dasha running. Am I clear now? The double transit of Saturn and Jupiter, making use of the Sarvashtaka along with the analysis of the birth horoscope and Dasha and Antar-dasa, is the snapshot method of giving sound, reliable predictions. Sound, reliable predictions are always different from in-depth analysis of some extraordinary finer points. So when Maitreya was taught Sarvashtaka, it was mainly for quick snapshot but dependable. I am adding but dependable prediction.
Have you ever seen a case where the Dasha was the star was, let's say, 17 or 20?
Pardon?
Have you ever seen cases where the Dasha was favorable, star was very weak, like let's say 20, but yet the benefit occurred anyway because of other factors?
It's a good question, very good question. In the earlier group I had before we started our Bharati Vidya Bhavan class, there was one girl working with me, working very hard. She one day came and showed me the horoscope of the son of a friend of hers and asked me, would he become a doctor? I said yes, ask him to compete right now. He competed and failed in all examinations. Failed in all examinations. So she came to me, she said, you asked him to compete and he has failed in all. I said, now prepare the Ashtakavarga and bring it to me. Jupiter was transiting in Aquarius, which was a very weak house in that horoscope. I said, ask him to compete again. Jupiter will move into Pisces, a better house. So for education also see transit of Jupiter. When you are doing career counseling, particularly for students, watch Jupiter. Jupiter is very favorable for sound, good education. Actually, in the case of in India, typically in India, 20, 21, 22 years, they keep on straight away first finished education. In a USA, you may leave it, come back, but it is not so in India. So we just see if Jupiter is favorable during this period or not for achievements. Yes.
In this example of the maybe was familiar when Saturn entered the 6th house, suppose Saturn was in the 12th house, aspecting the 6th house, which has the high benefic points.
No.
That would not be
No. The house the Saturn is in should be strong. It is not an aspectual connection. Yes.
Now, was your prediction of promotion not just based on the strong sixth, but also the fact that it owns the 10th?
Yes, that is one of the factors also. That is one of the factors also. Lord of the 10th, yes.
If the sixth is strong, could it cause some health difficulties?
Pardon?
If the sixth house is strong, could it cause health difficulties?
If the 6th house is strong, it gives you a lot of stamina.
For interpreting the quality of a particular dasha or antar-dasha, are you using the whether the dasha word has a point in its kasha to
Yes, all those things have to be there.
Mr. Rao, what dasha was he running? Dasha and Antar-dasa.
Pardon?
The example that you just gave.
Ah.
What dasha and Antar-dasa was he running?
Venus, I think then. Now I am coming to live historical cases. Live means, historical cases. From here I will illustrate the predictive principles of astrology which are Sarvashtaka, which you may check up by referring to history books also, anywhere in the world. So I have chosen only such examples which can be of universal application. But taken examples of monarchies. I will proceed slowly, read it turn by turn. Time is a flux and life changes with perceptible and imperceptible twists, sometimes very violently. When it happens in the life of a common man, it is forgotten. The famous man, when affected by such strokes of destiny, leaves behind him what we call history. You agree with this? History was and will always be the record of deeds, misdeeds, achievements, failures, and melodramatic rise and fall of famous men. In the horoscopes of monarchs, it is visible more and is verifiable, it being recorded history. In the small study being presented here, which is actually part of my major research on astrology, a fragment of which Mr. K.N. Rao had presented at San Rafael at the 3rd Vedic Conference of Vedic Astrology, November 1994 at USA, the present piece was not included. Subsequent to the presentation by Mr. Rao of my paper, many more studies are being included. So I asked him to give me this piece. Vinayadit. Since we are discussing royalty, let us enumerate some well-known classical parameters. Now you see, this is what I do in Delhi. Yesterday as I did, I gave you some parameters about air hostess. It totally gives you a new dimension of thinking. I gave you rather heavy stuff, and in spite of that, when I came to the horoscope of the kidnapped Romanian ambassador, you took time to catch the principle. So you will have to get used to this style of taking a very modern view. But now here I am giving you classical view. Try to understand that is the difference now. Here I am taking pure classical principles. Yesterday that was a radical modern view. Today I am giving you pure classical principles of interpretation combined with Ashtakavarga. Right? The 4th house and the 4th lord represents the throne of the king. It is a pure classical principle. Simhasana we call it. House, normal. Jupiter aspecting or conjoined with the luminaries, the sun mainly and also the moon, to lend regal dignity to them. in the birth horoscope or the Navansha, and preferably in both. Jupiter, Sun, Jupiter, Moon. Luminaries are the Sun and the Moon. Their connection with Jupiter lends dignity. I told you the planet of dignity is Jupiter. So, fourth house, first parameter, Jupiter and luminaries correction, second parameter. And in this second parameter, we have to go into Navansha at least minimum. Third, the 10th house, his fame, glory or failures. This is all pure classical astrology now for you. The fourth, the Dasha scheme in most visible colors, his coronation, marriage, battles, struggles, and the final disappearance from the stage of history. The Dasha is important. Do you want me to take a microphone and talk or what? No, but are you able to hear clearly? Is there any difficulty? Are you able to hear me clearly? Last row. Okay. Now the Dasha scheme, if you give a prediction to anyone without looking at the Dasha scheme, then what you are doing is not astrology. The wheel of time, it is a favorable time. It is an unfavorable time. What is it? So Dasha is meant to show you that. So therefore transits are least important. Dasha is the most important thing. Transits can come and give you only what your birth horoscope and Dasha promises to give you. A transit independent of the Dasha and your birth horoscopes promises can give you nothing. Because these transits keep on occurring all your life. Five, the transits of planets, particularly those of Saturn and Jupiter, are the most important factors in narrowing down the historical time frame. Other planets are moving every year around your horoscope. Saturn and Jupiter, the 60-year cycle I talked about in ups and downs in my career. What happens at the age of 60 is Saturn, after making full 2 rounds, comes back to the radical position. Jupiter 12 into 5 comes back to radical position. The age of 60 is an important landmark in the life of every human being. And I have given enough examples there. In your own country, 1913, President Nixon was born. 13 plus 60. What happened? Watergate. Indira Gandhi was born in 1917. 17 plus 60. 77, she lost her elections. I have given lots of instances. Why Shashti Purti or Shashtabdi Purti is an important landmark in someone's life. In India, we celebrate it. Completion of the age of 60. It is a rebirth for you. Your life undergoes a change. So the transit of Saturn and Jupiter you must see always. Such transits examined on the Ashtakavarga supports known historical details with a rare clarity, which in a way supports the view of some astrologers that astrology was meant for the use of kings or very important people. You see, you go through any astrological classic, mostly you will find they are giving combinations for courts, courtiers, battles, military men, combinations for ordinary men, day-to-day combinations. Only now we are doing those researches. They were not there earlier. and in the classics you get only those principles. That is why most of the people who are writing commentaries on this are not able to give examples and modernize. Yesterday when I talked about air hostess, I gave you something which you will never get in any textbook. In all my books I have given examples which you will not get in any textbook at all. These are all modern researched materials applicable to the common man. All classics contain combinations for kings, high people. They were consulting perhaps, or maybe those people became the writers, who knows, I don't know. Why is it that many of those classics don't have combinations for ordinary men day-to-day career? The reason could be that.
Well, also in the times before computers, it was a full-time job to just do the calculations, so only a king or
Anyway, thank you. You write that and I'll quote you in India. That is good. That will save me. That's a good thing. She says, yes, before calculator, computer, because it was a full-time job, maybe ordinary men didn't go. That can be one explanation. Secondly, is in the pre-industrial era, what was life? My answer is, in the pre-industrial era, you didn't have these questions. You are an agriculturist, or you are a priest, or you are a warrior, finish. Or a king. 3, 4, 5 categories of jobs, anywhere in the world. In the feudal era, there was no need for all these modern questions. No classic has been written after the industrial age. Therefore, modernizing the whole thing, taking those principles, is the modern challenge for an astrologer. Seventh, the dreaded Sadesathi of the 7.5-year movements of Saturn from the 12th to the 2nd of natal moon seems to be a very effective and useful study. Now you come to this, when you come to pure classical principles applied to monarchs, I am taking you back to the original classics, and here you see how astrology applies. We are first showing bare horoscopes with Navanshas without discussing any details of the 6 royal figures of recent centuries. The birth details have been taken from the 3rd edition of Notable Horoscopes of Dr. B.V. Raman, and the horoscopes have been cast as per the Lahiri Ainansha. That is, it is taken from the birth data, but we have not used his Ainansha. King Farooq of Egypt, Nizam of Hyderabad. You have heard about Nizam of Hyderabad? King Farooq of Egypt. Nizam of Hyderabad was the richest man of the world when it came to possession of jewelry and gold. Fabulously rich. Duke of Windsor? No. King George VI? And the last two? You know the last two? Okay. Remember the 6 parameters given. 7 parameters we had given. Right? Now the King Farooq of Egypt. What is the ascendant? Pardon? Add 1 degree 28 minutes to the ascendant. It will change into, Dr. Raman discusses it under Libra in notable horoscopes and justifies an event which is illogical. You cannot get results unless you stick to Virgo ascendant here. 1 degree 29 minutes you add and it will become Libra. And it will make all the difference to this. I will come to that when I take up one by one. Now see this horoscope. From the Lagna, you find the 10th house, the 11th house and the 12th house all are strong. 32, 32, 30. The strongest of course is the 3rd house, 35. Jupiter is aspecting the Sun. Okay? Clear? What is the degree of the Sun? Add 1 degree 28 minutes. Where will Sun go? You see our differences with the other Ainansha? Where is the royal dignity? It will vanish. Jupiter is aspecting the Sun. From the Moon you find in the 10th house an exalted Jupiter. Gajikesari Yoga. In the Navansha again Jupiter and Moon in 4-10 axis. Right? So first bare horoscopes, then one by one I will discuss. Here you will come across lots of predictive principles stage by stage. As I told you, the juicy part I had reserved for this. But before the juicy part, I could not make you do the manual exercise, so I am still frustrated. I am still frustrated. Anyway. Nizam of Hyderabad. What is the ascendant? Where is Jupiter? Again aspecting the Sun. In the Navansha, Jupiter is aspecting the Moon. The Lagna is Vargottama. You know the term Vargottama by now very well. Chirmule very rightly asked you to buy Brihad Jataka of Varahamihira. Well, if you can get Subramanya Shastri's Brihad Jatak or Dr. Surya Narayan Rao's Brihad Jatak, you keep it with you always. Not very elaborated, not illustrated, but they are classics. Brihad Jatak has Brihad Jatak of Varahamihira has two principles which you may note down somewhere. Now, while now discussing like this, suddenly I will switch from one subject to another. If you now don't keep track, you will be a loser, not I. Brihad Jatak gives you two principles. Vargottama Lagna or Vargottama Moon gives tremendous strength to your horoscope. Principle number 1. And Varahamihira, mind you, the world will not have another Varahamihira. On the predictive side, I don't think historically there was ever a greater astrologer in the world. The second principle he gives appears rare to you. Varahamihira prefers Jupiter in Leo and Aquarius to exalted Jupiter in Cancer. He says they give you better results. So he says in birth horoscope, suppose it is in Cancer, and in Navansha it is in Leo or Aquarius. Thus this Jupiter has a high lifting quality, like that. In the birth, you take three houses, Cancer, Leo and Aquarius. Work out the combinations. In birth horoscope, suppose it is in Leo, and in Navansha it is in Cancer. Or in the birth horoscope it is in Cancer, in Navansha it is in Leo or Aquarius. So this Jupiter, according to him, has retained its high quality.